Hi everyone. So and Nathan is the host, and we're trying out using not Zoom but StreamYard. And Nathan wanted to have a chit chat, so here I am, Nathan. All yours.
Thank you, Rehan. I'm doing a project where I'm interviewing a different person every single day between now and the end of 2024. And the reason I've chosen the end of 2024 is because NASA is planning to return back to the moon with people in 2024. And I was curious, have you by chance heard about that?
No.
And what do you think about people going off of the Earth into to the moon and to Mars and other places? Do you think it's a waste of money or like something we should do whenever we solve problems on Earth, like getting everybody clean water and food? Or do you think it's important for sort of the development of society? Like, what do you think about sort of like the exploration and development of space?
So I think that some of us, like for example, Jeff Bezos is trying, and Elon is trying, and NASA is trying to do all this. I think it's fine for them to pursue their own ambitions and things which they really want to pursue. And it's not necessarily a priority for me at the moment because I come from a country where you cannot get basic needs met yet. So when I have taken on the audacious, crazy task of ending world poverty, where at least people should make $500 a month in countries like India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, which is half of the planet. So my interest is also it's like a moonshot, personally speaking, but it's more on the planet Earth than going to um, the moon, for example. And however, having said that, we must invest some money, like insurance money, which we pay to find out if we can go to the moon, because out of that, a lot of other innovations do come. Just like from Elon's program of the Mars program, they are planning to have another project which will allow us to travel within the planet much faster than it would do uh, than it has been for the last 50 years, for example. So yes, crazy goals allow us to have new way of thinking, and that new way of thinking allow us to innovate in ways which normally people don't do, and exponential growth happens.
So that's amazing. You've heard about Elon Musk kind of Starship, with the point-to-point travel, where you could go from like Houston to China in like 30 minutes. And where did you hear about that from?
So we have a space club here in Pakistan where we have a space university also. We have a space program in Pakistan, and it's called Suparco. And I was giving a talk for the space club people, and I was I follow the CEO of the project, the woman who, and her speech was fantastic, and it was explaining how they're planning to do this. And I took a part of that speech and used it to encourage people within Pakistan also to think big enough, like having a moonshot. Literally, that's the new terminology people are using for thinking giantly, thinking big. Um, and that's how I came to know of her.
That's awesome. I'd love to get connected to them. Um, Maybe you can connect us.
I'm not connected directly with her. I am connected to the Virgin Galactic CEO. I was supposed to meet her. I actually met her somewhere. And then I am connected. I'm very interested in the Virgin Galactic program also in the same way, because again, Branson's program to have a going to the space or space travel should become normal. When people have audacious goals, as I said, even if those audacious goals are not met within our lifespan, because of those audacious goals, other things come to life, and those things allow us to create fantastic things for the planet. So I'm all for it. I'm all for giant goals and moonshots and Mars shots and all of those.
Um, and you mentioned that in Pakistan, there are a lot of basic needs that need to be met. Um, I think for a lot of us who live in like the US and Canada and Europe, it's really hard to imagine what it might be like in Pakistan. And I was wondering if you had, maybe you could give a description to kind of help us understand the situation a little bit more.
Mm. So 65% of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, which is 1.6 billion people, just these three countries,
Hmm.
cannot read their name in any language. So if they cannot read their name, they cannot read books, they cannot get educated in the way you can, they cannot have an original, they can have original thoughts, but they don't know where to go and solve it. How do you solve problems? So my task is to get everyone skip the whole learning process of learning text, but jumping directly from learning text to learning to educate themselves using smartphones. So all of our phones now have a Google Assistant built in, and using that Google Assistant or Siri for that matter, we can start learning whatever we want to learn very quickly. Parallelly, we have YouTube, which is again the best university available. And all of us in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh do have high speed broadband internet. So we do have internet. We have kind of have smartphones to 25% of the country. We don't have enough teachers to teach the whole population. But what we can have is one teacher to educate everyone. Second, we cannot open our tap and drink water. First of all, many houses don't have taps to just open and drink water. 30% of the population do not have a access to a toilet. So we are still like 100 years behind when, in the US, it was kind of similar 100, years ago. And the literacy rate and the water and sanitation is a challenge. And the third is they make less than $2 a day. So if you make less than $2 a day, it's hard. It's the priority is not going to be going to the moon. The priority is going to be having food on the table. So the priorities are just different. And eventually, I hope that if we survive as humanity in the next 10 to 20 years, we will be able to solve this poverty problem on the planet because of the internet, because of the smartphones, because of the technologies which are available. And now, all of a sudden, because of empowering these people and skipping the whole schooling system, we can literally have phenomenal, audacious, crazy people who have ambitions, who have desires, but now they're going to be putting content on YouTube and Facebook, which has no boundaries. They think beyond the textbook. They think beyond Einstein's theory of relativity. They think beyond everything. They're like, why can't I do this? So they're like kids, all of a sudden unleashed to do anything. If you look at a 5-year-old, 6-year-old child, they want to do everything. They want to have a space car. They can do anything with their imagination. So my excitement is that when these 2 billion people will come online and they will start putting content on the internet, that content will not have, you know, past borders or limitation to our own imagination might not be there. So that's a very exciting thing for me. That's what, and so right now, priority for us is food, water, sanitation. Post Corona time, it's even more problematic because everything is closed. People are working day to day. We don't have any planning for such thing, and the government is trying to give them free food. How long can the government sustain that for like a billion and a half people? It's going to be very very challenging.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing the idea of people getting online and being able to skip the whole writing and reading thing to start conversing. There's so much information online, and not all of it is kind of fact based, if you will. A lot of it's meant for the very purpose of sort of agitating people and getting them to move in a certain direction. How do you sort of protect people from having that, from allowing for them to actually learn and think and connect in a way that builds them up and builds up their communities without that getting hijacked by people who maybe have more mundane objectives?
That's a fantastic question. Once you get on the internet and once you pass a certain nursery level of learning to use the internet, once you get on Facebook, the chance of having conversation from a person who is totally opposite to you is much higher than it is in the real world. If you are just living in a village with 300 people, the chance of you ever hearing about the moonshot or Elon Musk is absolutely impossible. But if you have a smartphone and you have a circle of friends, all of a sudden Facebook um, bursts with uh, circles. We change our circle, or chances of looking at another circle, or for that matter, the pond or the well, is much higher than just hitting one thing. So, for example, if you grow up going to one church in Spring, Texas, and that's it, and that's maximum you went to another church, or you saw a church on the way, but mostly the religious people will not go to another church, will not hear about the other. Chances are they will not listen about it. In our country, especially, we don't have comparative religion in school. So we don't, even if you do hear about other religions, for example, you will hear it from with a different bias in place or different perspective in place already. Internet allows us to have a different perspective. So if you're watching Fox TV and you love a certain person and you watch him every day and you don't have access to the internet, the chances are you're going to hear the same kind of philosophy every day. Whereas if you hear the same thing on Facebook, chances are that somebody else will come in from a different school of thought and comment, and you can get into an argument or get into a conversation which allows you to self-educate yourself and Google something different. So I personally believe that internet allows us more liberty, more facts. And even though internet is full of garbage facts, but so are the libraries, so are the books, so are the newspapers. There's not a lot of fact checks in those also. And then again, the facts are bias based. So if you are following a certain school of thought, your newspaper already is biased, for example.
Yeah, no, I mean that's absolutely true. And the opportunity to connect with others is really, and having like challenging positions and engaging conversations really good. But one observation I've had with these interviews that I've been doing is that if you're a space person, you know that NASA's going to the moon and you know what Elon's doing and what Jeff Bezos is doing and all this. If you're not a space person, it's never even popped up for you. And the limited amount of like research that I've done into it, I mean, it seems like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google all have like algorithms that look at what you're interested in and then keep giving you more and more and more and more of that stuff. And so instead of like the internet on Facebook necessarily exposing you to wide perspectives, it seems to feed you more and more of what you already think, which could just make you think that you're absolutely right. And instead of challenging you, kind of make you further into that rut. And I was curious in what your take was on this.
I totally agree with you, but at the same time, since you're my Facebook friend for at least a couple of years, you might have noticed that I constantly provoke the idea of connecting to the other, to somebody you don't like, to somebody you hate. I mean, Republicans versus Democrat, Israelis versus Palestinians, Pakistanis versus Indians, Muslims versus Jews. I constantly create opportunities for people to engage themselves and look in the mirror and observe that do they really know, or do they really, are they really right? Do they ask that question to themselves? Because when somebody asks a simple question, everything starts to change. And nobody within the same circle asks a simple question which will change your life. Um, I'll give you an example. I was talking to a friend from South Africa, and my wife walked into the room, and I passed on the phone to her, and he asked, "So you live in Karachi?" She said, "Yes." So he asked, "Oh, so how many people live in Karachi?" And she looked at my face like she didn't know the answer. So I told her 30 million, and she said, "Really?
Wow.
We have 30 million people?" And then, I passed out the information back to her. So now it's a very simple question, but if she's living in Karachi, nobody is going to ask her how many people live in Karachi. Only a person who doesn't live in Karachi or doesn't live in Pakistan might ask that question. So it's important for us to engage with the people. And what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. If you start talking, the question you asked is, have you even heard of this? It's a beautiful question because most people are not really curious about galaxies and spaceships and going to the moon. Some of us who are nerds, like who grew up with Star Trek or Star Wars, might be curious, but not everybody in Pakistan. For example, I think maximum 5% of Pakistan has watched Star Trek, which is a very low number. But watching Star Trek gives you such a phenomenal imagination. I mean, I have watched Star Trek, all the series, multiple times for different purposes. One of the purposes I saw Star Trek Next Generation and the one with the woman captain was to learn leadership. How does she handle the human beings? How does she handle situations which are totally different? How is she handling different scenarios in the world? So I have seen Star Trek from multiple angles. One of them is leadership. So for me, Star Trek is a fantastic leadership coach class. Majority just watch it for entertainment, but people, as I said, people who are geeks kind of understand it. You bumped into a geek today who has watched Star Trek, who likes it. So it's different for everyone. And if you follow Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of course, the first three levels have to be met before you get into entertainment or higher level of entertainment or entertainment with thinking purposes. Um, so yeah, if what you're doing is fantastic, and I encourage you to come to my Facebook network and start interviewing those people, because now all of a sudden you're going to open a Pandora's box for them and their circle, for their circle. Because when you do something what you're doing right now on Facebook Live, you're going on their Facebook also, and their friends and families are going to ask questions. Moon, interesting. Why not? Why this? Why not? Right? Totally different perspective. So you just being an American, it will be good for them just to have a conversation about the moon, because moon is a goal for all humanity. It's not a goal for Americans. It's going to impact the whole planet. Because we went to the moon, we have microcomputers today. If we didn't went to the moon, or if we didn't went or tried to go to the moon, we wouldn't have computers, microchips, and all that stuff. So for innovation, you need audacious goals.
Yeah, indeed. And just to provide that daily motivation to get up and make your world a little bit better, to go and achieve something inspirational, I think could be helpful too. Um, so you mentioned clean water is in scarce supply in Pakistan. What do you think is the fundamental change that would need to happen in order to make clean water ubiquitous?
I don't know what fundamental change we need to happen. A lot of people are working, but not enough. And the mindset of the people of our country is that somehow we believe, majority of us believe that everything has to be done by the government. So we don't realize that majority of the things which are fixed are done by entrepreneurs. Um, going to Mars is not happening by the government. Going to the project of Jeff Bezos is not happening by the United States government. Even NASA is buying stuff from Elon Musk's company. So the role of entrepreneurship is missed in our country, and majority of the people do not understand that you can actually go on YouTube, find your own idea, find your own solutions, and start fixing your own problems. You don't need governments anymore to fix problems for you. And that is the challenge I work with. My whole work is around allowing people to have a backbone strong enough that they can take up things on their own, like you're doing. You're just having a conversation about the moon. I mean, I want people to come online and just start having a conversation about water. What do you think what the problem is? How do we solve it? Very simple task. If 20 people woke up in Pakistan and said, I'm going to interview one person a day about water for 30 minutes for the next 4 years. That's 1,200 interviews. By the end of 300 interviews, this guy would already be a smart ass. He would know exactly what the problem is, how to solve it, what the solutions are on the planet, and let's get it going. I mean, he wouldn't need to wait for anyone. So my interest is now to teach people how do you use the crowd to use the internet to solve almost any problem which has already been solved by majority of the planet. You don't need to reinvent anything. You just need to learn and focus and implement. That's it. And you don't have any obstacle except you within. That's it. And once you decide that you want to become the change maker, change starts happening.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And what you said about the attitude of a lot of people believing that the government needs to solve things, and I'm seeing kind of more and more of that here in the U.S. as well. So I mean, there's definitely always a struggle in every society. The government and politicians often feed that thing. They're like, you have to get it from me. You have to elect me, and their
Otherwise, I'm in my
entire
job. What am I supposed to say? Of course, I'm going to say that.
exactly. So I mean, it's just kind of. I mean, I feel like a lot of it was kind of a legacy of having those first people come over to North America, and there was no choice but for them to succeed, and then they passed that on to their generations. But then over time, you start seeing the same kind of more traditional philosophies develop, and you kind of lose that. And I'm wondering if maybe us going into space or developing like oceans, cities in the oceans and things like this, maybe is a chance to sort of reinvigorate that on some level. Just
As I
yeah,
said, I think audacious goals like going to the moon or going to Mars allows it's for humanity. It's no longer for the United States or Russia or some country because everybody benefits. It's uh, when the first step was taken. The you remember the dialogue which was like a giant leap for humanity. It's not for Americans. It's for humanity because everybody is going to co-learn and co-create, and that's what the internet does. You're sitting in Houston in a lockdown. I'm sitting in Pakistan in a lockdown in Karachi, a third world country, but does it feel? I could have told you I'm in New York. It doesn't matter anymore. It's my attitude, it's my thinking what matters anymore. And that is what has not evolved. Even though the internet has evolved, the smartphones have evolved, the humanity has not been able to evolve itself, that, believing that they're living in a very different world. And that is what I think a gift of coronavirus is, that everybody is finally sitting at home, finally becoming exactly the same enabled person. And a whole new paradigm shift is going to happen out of this. And I can't thank Corona enough for this. I'm sorry for the people who are going to lose their lives, but your lives against this war is going to serve humanity really well, I think.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point because World War II was such a dramatic event. Lots of lives were lost, lots of destruction of property, and a lot of issues that came out of it. But I think that bad time fundamentally shifted things, and in some respects, I think that kind of like this technological world that we have is really a result of taking so many people and getting them technical educations, and also just that bond between people. I mean, it's hard to find a business partner that you can truly trust, and that you can work together with, that you're not constantly wondering, am I doing more work and being taken advantage by them, or are they doing more work and being taken advantage by me? But if you have lived in like a life and death situation together, then that gives you like a kind of a bond to build on that is really hard to reproduce.
Right.
Um, and creating kind of like those teams, I think would be a very powerful thing that could come out of this.
Yeah.
Um, so, assuming it was as safe and affordable as airline travel, would you have an interest in going into orbit and experiencing
Sure.
Earth from above?
For sure, for sure. I mean, it's $250,000 for now. I would rather spend it in, some other ways which I can think of. But if it was $1,000, $2,000, $10,000, $5,000, I think I would be very happy to going to the moon. Hey, how's it going? Let's have a cup of cake, coffee, and moon. I'm here. Let's meet up, or and stuff. Same thing. And I think it's going to happen. And I don't know when, but I don't think it's very far. I hope that Corona allows humanity to become more like Jack Fresco imagined and other people like him imagined, like the Venice Project. I don't know if you're aware of it. Um, if you're not, you might want to look into it. It's a very interesting philosophy of humanity.
It's called
Um,
the Venice Project.
it's called the Venice Project,
Okay.
and it's the founder was called Jack Fresco, and it's a very nice content which you will find on how we can literally use technology in changing humanity. So all that work with all these thinkers did in the last 30, 40 years, I think right now is a fantastic time for us to, as I said, evolve into humanity 3.0 or something, where we're all hyper connected, hyper relaxed, hyper being able to trust each other. We need to build models, we need to build more systems to trust each other, work with each other, more friendly ways, more ways than we are doing right now. But I think I'm hopeful that this corona will bring very interesting things for humanity. A lot of people actually are now very hopeful that we're going to rethink the whole. Everything is just going to change. Hopefully,
Yeah, it's also any type of disaster like this. In Houston, we have hurricanes. Once every couple of years that cause everything to shut down for a week or so, and then we have to, do a lot of rebuilding and what have you. But during that time, you always kind of are reminded about what's real and what's sort of made up, just to keep track of what's real. I mean, as an example, I mean, people are real, but countries aren't, right? I mean, they're just an abstraction we've created to sort of get people to think they're on the same team.
yeah.
um, but resources and technology and knowing how to do things is real, but money and the economy is like all made up. That's kind of fake. So I was wondering, your kind of struggles to try to increase dialogue, create those connections. What are some of the issues you have of getting people overcoming certain abstractions and ideas and really focus on the real fundamental part of it? Like,
So I think the word change or is just absolutely hard for anyone. So if you take a very small change, for example, if I just say, why don't you take your hand and put one hand on top of the other like this, and why don't you try to do it? Yeah,
Yep.
just one hand on top of another one, right? And now take the other one and do it the other way around. So one comes naturally, and the other one is kind of enforced. So you have kind of an internal resistance to do even a small little change in our mindset. And that's what the problem is, that we're not educated enough to embrace our, love. The Jesus thing, love thy enemy thing is not, we don't love them. We just say that maybe. Or if we could start using the time we have wasted in our schools and colleges and trying to memorize things or become a certain way and start literally having conversations with people who we are talking about, things will change. If when you were growing up, probably it was the Cold War time, and if you had 100 Russian friends, you were having a conversation within your classroom. There is no way on earth that Russia would be at that time an enemy country or enemy state, because now you have friends. How can you be friends, enemies with your friends? So it's just that the mindset is set, mind is set, and then changing that mindset to anything is, it takes patience, it takes a lot of work, it takes effort. It's like some are fertile minds and some are like stones, like granite, or really hard to crack. And I'm very very I would say lucky that internet was introduced in my life at a very early age. I'm also very lucky that I was introduced to fantastic human beings from around the world at a very early age. So my biases have been mixed into many other biases, and um, I, with this experiment of making 500 mutual connections and getting a laptop, learned a lot of things that it. I found it to be the easiest way of allowing people to unlearn what they know and ask questions. And I think when you ask questions is when you grow. That's how I think we can do it. I wish I was Trump or the prime minister here and say everybody has to go out there and use Facebook and make 500 friends from all around the world, because all of a sudden we will become humans, not Americans, Pakistanis, Indians, Israelis, Palestinians. We will be connected as human beings. And as you said, these so-called nation states and borders, um, and they have a purpose. They have. It's not like we can take them away tomorrow, but they allow us to um, think in a very different way. I mean, so that's the biggest challenge, because we have been fed certain information for a very long time, and we start believing that information because it's repeated over time, right? So I don't know if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Um, Either way, you don't want to budge that, you're right. Well, let's have some parties and friends on both sides and have a conversation on both sides. And if you are a good leader or if you're a good human, you would accept that you're wrong, and then you proceed with a new learning. But it takes time.
Yeah, definitely. I read a book earlier this year called Violent Borders. I was wondering if by chance you've heard of it. But
No,
it does
I
a,
will definitely write it down, and I will definitely. It sounds like my kind of thing. I should definitely.
explores sort of the difficulties. It explores how we have borders that are free to capital and open to capital, goods, and services, but closed to people moving and closed to rules transferring across them. And it really highlights how this situation allows for a lot of people to be kept at a continuous disadvantage and essentially um, uh, the people in the other countries are able to take advantage of that situation. And because if a worker can move from a low income area to a higher income area, eventually you would see the incomes across the world start to even out. And if you had like the same rules in terms of workers' rights and environmental protection on both sides of the borders, you wouldn't have people move their factories just to, you know, make people work 18 hours a day, give them less than $2 a day of wages, and have them work in really terrible circumstances. And I was just wondering what you thought, um, how much of the problems we see in the world is a result of that, from your point of view.
There is another similar book called Why Nations Fail, and it also explains the challenges which you're explaining. So it's about the systems, right? But people like me I want to exploit the power of the internet. This week, I launched a new uh, project where I was saying, "Hey Nathan, if you like, I can give you a person who could download your videos, edit them, make clips out of them, make really titles with them, everything for $100 a month." I
Oh, that'd be
mean,
fantastic. Can you
there
hook
you
me up?
go. There you go. So I made up a portal, and it's still under construction right now, unfortunately. That I announced that would you, since there's lockdown and people are losing their jobs left and right, they want some work and they're not looking for freelancing. They don't want a job. They want a fixed monthly income. So I just made a post and it said, if I offer you $100 a month to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, normally we work 10 hours a day and 6 days a week. If I offer you 5 days a week, 8 hours a day job, would you be happy to work for this? And I got 5,000 people to agree and join a group for this. And now my problem is how do I find employers enough to even for $100. So that's my second challenge, which I'm going to have is how do I get more Nathans to hire people for $100 a month? Now, because of the internet, these people can now work for you. And my goal is to get them to start working. It's going to start from the low end jobs, just like when Mexicans come to Texas and Arizona, they pick up fruits and vegetables because there's a language issue, there's all kinds of issues, and people just pay cash. And all that economy does exist, and those are the problems which they get over with. And the second generation, or fixes that. But similarly, my goal here is that if Nathan could hire just one guy or girl to do this, and over 6 months period he keeps doing a good job, Nathan would say, "Hey, dude, I mean, you're worth more than $500 to me, or I need four more people like this." Who, or you can go next door and tell to John, or when you meet him, saying, "Hey, I have hired this guy recently for $100 a month. He's awesome. I WhatsApp him, whatever, and 2 hours done while I go to sleep, it gets done. And I wake up and it's like, wow, my job is already done." Or you could hire them to the same guy. You can say, "Hey, can you do this research for me and make a video and send it to me about this?" Or you can do interviews for me because I can only interview one guy a person. How about if I could hire a person who do 5 interviews for me out there on going to the moon? So all of a sudden, Nathan can have, instead of doing 4 years, you will get to your target in 9 months. For what? $100 a month? That's nothing. So so things like this are going to happen. Um, then people were like, "We don't even own a laptop." So I said, "Okay, I'll charge you $6 a month. I'll give you a laptop for $6 a month. So here you go. Here's your laptop. If you don't like it, you can return it to me for $6 a month. You can own a laptop." So I think evolution is going to happen. My fear is that when governments find out about these things, they're going to start to say, "No, you can't hire people from Pakistan anymore for $100 a month. It's too sad. It's labor this and labor that and whatever." So
right?
I mean, technology is a disruptor, and humanity wants to succeed, but certain people would not be very happy if we do this. But let's see.
So what you're saying is the internet allows for people to move across borders without having to come in contact with them.
Right.
It's like the key. That's awesome. I'm really serious. I could really use some help.
What you do is you go to our group. It's called the $100 Assistant, and you post your job there. And people, right now, because the website is not up and running, you can just go to the group and you can just post it there. That hi, my name is Nathan, and just send me your WhatsApp number. You look at their profile, and you can pick up two, three people, have a conversation with them, give them some task. If it's, and again, remember, it's just $100 a month, and you can pick them up for 2 3 days on trial. You can say, if you do this and you do a good job, I'll hire you. And you can tell them that, I'm giving this task to 4 people. Whoever does the best job, I'm going to pick up. It's like, again, going, picking up your truck and going to the corner and picking up 3 Mexicans, saying, hey, come on over. Whoever does a good job, I'll hire you. So it's a lot of choices now available. And I think once I launch this, I can get like 1 million people to work like this online. So it's crazy, but it's an interesting project.
Yeah, indeed. I know. I found the Facebook group, so I'll definitely join. And
Hunt for people.
that'd be fantastic because editing video is a time-consuming activity for sure.
Yeah.
So, well, is there any words you'd like to say in closing?
No, I wanted people to know that we actually met at a mosque in Houston, and I did not remember that I met you at a mosque. I also saw that you have a photo of an airplane on your profile. So tell us more a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about what you do, what your ambitions are, and what is your goal with this show.
Yeah, so uh, I'm a I work for a software company and their support organization to help our customers use our product. So that's what I do during the day job. Space is a big passion of mine. I would like to see humanity come together and branch out into the rest of the universe and to really get to explore and inhabit. I mean, we don't know if there's life in the rest of the universe, but we know that the universe is huge and we know there's life on Earth. And we life is a really special, amazing thing. I mean, you could take a little small seed and it turns into a huge fig tree and it could feed like an entire neighborhood and it has seeds that could feed people. I mean, it's just really amazing. And I feel like that we should take this special thing of life on Earth and go put it in the rest of the universe. You know, we should be branching out and exploring things. But about this show, I actually did this to avoid social distancing. Um, in December, I had this inspiration of interviewing every day a person in person because I work from home and I don't really go out that much. And so my goal was to force myself to go and have a conversation with somebody in person every day. Get out of the house, meet somebody new. In fact, I went to Starbucks and I met a guy there, and we had like an hour-long conversation about the famine in Yemen and the how we could possibly help to address that. And it was really a good conversation. But with this COVID-19, I've had to move my interviews online, which is kind of breaking one of my rules. But it's also allowed for me to connect with people that I wouldn't have been able to connect with if I strictly did the in-person thing. Um, so this was meant to help me become more comfortable talking to people in person and to have that daily connection. So that was that, and then also, I'm really passionate about space, and like you said, there's a lot of people that it really isn't in their set of information that they come across. And what I'd like to do is understand how my passion in space looks like from somebody who's not passionate, and kind of understand, how it what they're going through and what they think connects to what I think, and kind of get their reaction on kind of my views, so I can kind of help to expand my understanding. And then regarding the airplane, I live right next to a little small airport, and I've always wanted to learn to fly. And if you're living next to an airport and you want to learn how to fly, that's the time to do it. So that's what I'm trying to do. But I've had to put my flying lessons on hold because of the whole COVID-19 thing. Even though it's still open, and apparently even aviation training is considered an essential service, but we're strictly staying at home and not going anywhere because of this COVID-19 thing. So that's me. But it was
Wonderful.
good
So
meeting
this
you
is
at the
fantastic.
mall. I should say that if you ever run into Rehan, at least it was true 10 years ago or whenever we met, you won't get away from him without becoming a Facebook friend, getting a selfie. Uh, you know, he will connect with you. And so it's really
Thank
great.
you. Thank you for connecting. You're a fantastic listener. If you have time after this, I would like to have another call with you on working from home. I would just want to discuss in general because you have experience in working from home. I would like to figure out how we can help you and others hire more people. So because you're already working from home, you already know what you want to do. You can train other people to take over your entire job. Literally, if you have read the book 4 Hour Work Week, basically that's what the guy did. And I want to hack this process so we can use take advantage of the internet and all this opportunity available uh, to the world. Then people can start working from home if you have the time today or otherwise another day.
Yeah, I have time today. Let's do it.
Yes, so thank you everybody, and you can close the show and then we'll end it.
Okay. Not sure how to close the
No,
show, actually.
you just close like the words like thank you for
Oh,
joining.
okay. Well, thank y'all so much for watching this another episode of Countdown to the Moon .org. I want to interview another 1,733 people, I think. So if you have an interest in, no, if you are willing to talk to me, regardless of your interest in anything, I would definitely like for us to have a conversation and to have you on the show. So please comment on this Facebook post, or send me an email, nathan.price@gmail.com, or anything else. I would definitely like to connect. Thank you.
Nathan.price@gmail. There you go. And fantastic. So email him if you want to give interviews. I will line up a lot of people for you, Nathan. Don't worry about
That'd be fantastic. 1,730 some odd people
it.
are hard to get.
Oh, not for me. No worries. Don't worry about it. Okay, so